Hello, it's Scott Gould here. I want to invite you to join me and many other superb speakers at Ecom Talk. Now, I'm going to be talking about the engagement apocalypse. I have a question for you. What happens when people don't have to go to work and people can print anything that they want at home and are no longer buying physical goods? Well, this was a future that we thought was 10 years away. Guess what? That future is here now. So if you want to find out what you do, how you handle this, and why engagement is the critical and the competitive advantage in the middle of this, then please join up, listen, and check out this talk. What is engagement? Well, the first thing is we know what disengagement is, right? It's when two things are separate. There's you, there's me, and we're separated. So engagement is when you and me come together, right? Engagement is togetherness in its most simple form. Here are some examples of engagement. There are many engagements: engaged to be married, engaged on your phone, engaged in the toilet maybe, and this is my favorite, right? Engaged with Star Wars, as in like deep heart engagement. All of these are valid forms of engagement. And engagement, right? What is it? What do we see in all of these instances? Engagement is increasing the value of a relationship by being closer together, right? Togetherness, the closer together we are, the more value that we create out of the relationship. Essentially, we're talking about how do we become like this, and how do we get people to be this engaged, right? That's what we want for our customers, for our employees, for our community members. Dare I say, we even want them to be more like this, right? There's deep level engagement that I will see your game in the snow. Now, my gambit to you is that the future is where togetherness wins. That's how critical engagement is going to be. Why do I think this is so? Well, I can tell it by looking at the past. If we think about the plotting of the progression of economic value, originally we extracted commodities from the ground. Think about coffee. Grains will cost in the manner of cents on the dollar, right? They are nothing. But over time, we turned into an industrial economy about 200 years ago, and we began to manufacture goods. Now, coffee, not as a commodity, but as a good, instant coffee on the store shelf or a bag of coffee beans. Okay, we're now looking at maybe 50 cents upwards. But as a service in the post-industrial economy, which really came into its own after the Second World War, coffee now, and in a cafe, we're looking at $1 to $2, right? And we live, very much in a service economy. But over the last 30 years, we have moved actually into the information age and into an experience economy, where we will now pay $4 for a cup of coffee, let's say, up to $15. You go to the Florian Cafe Florian in Venice, in St. Mark's Square, you will pay 15 euros for your cup of coffee because of the experience that goes with it. But it doesn't end there. You can actually then pay to be transformed, right? Transformation, the economy of change, the economy of delivering a result. Well, you could pay hundreds to be trained in how to make your own amazing coffee. And indeed, some people do this. There's that great scene in The Bucket List where the guy wants the greatest coffee and he has someone around him who can produce that for him. That's a transformation. And this is what some people are beginning to call the augmented age. I don't want to get into that. The main thing here is that these highest levels of value, engagement is what determines how much value somebody gets out of it, right? When it comes to a commodity, we're concerned about three things only: price, price, price. When it comes to a good, once the price is satisfied, we're then thinking about, well, what's the quality of the good? With a service, we're really thinking about what is the convenience of this service. That's what we're paying for, convenience. But when it comes to experiences and transformations, what we take away from it depends on how much we put into it, and therefore engagement and togetherness becomes critical. Think about Pokemon Go. This guy is a Pokemon Go player. And the fun of this game was determined by how much you put into it. This is the future of our economy, right? And now, not only does it exist for customers, it also exists for employees. Think about the change of trade, right? It used to be that you worked and you were paid, and possibly you were paid in grain, maybe you were paid in currency. Then with the Industrial Revolution, we had the introduction of working hours for the first time. Post-industrial, we then begin to get workers' rights around what service they're providing. In the information age, now the interest is upon work satisfaction. This was not a consideration 100 years ago. It certainly wasn't a consideration 200 years ago, let alone 12,000 years ago. But now employers are concerned, are their employees satisfied? But in the augmented age, the gambit is we are actually looking for work to be transformational to us. We're not just looking for a good experience at work with which we're satisfied. We are looking for, how does work help me fulfill my life destiny? Again, engagement determines value here. You will only get as much out of it as you put in. And the headlines are emphasizing this, these new transformation employee benefits. I mean, and we're seeing this, right? Employees don't care where you work. Results only work environments. The boss who puts somebody on 70K, people can talk till the cows come home about Google and the Googleplex and all the thrills and spills that are added to make your work environment enjoyable, not only satisfying, but also something that betters your life, right? Leadership training that anybody can do, perks that make your life richer and better, unended paternity pay, what have you. Well, this isn't just happening in the work environment. Of course, we've already discussed this is happening in customers, and here we go, right? In fact, we see it in the form of the subscription economy. No longer own a car. You can get access to the flashiest car. So travel is now something I can pay for on subscription. Fashion subscription, the famous scene in Sex and the City where Jennifer Hudson's character Louise has a Louis Vuitton bag because she subscribes monthly to get the handbag of choice. That is certainly experiential, if not transformational, to the image that she wants to project. And of course, now Panera Bread, you can subscribe to get your coffee. Of course, right? It doesn't just end there. No. We now subscribe for our creative services with Adobe. We subscribe for our entertainment with Netflix and others. We subscribe to sell, right? Shopify, we are subscribing in order to sell. Get your head around this, right? This economy. Dollar Shave Club, Brillo Apron, you have it, right? We have a monthly relationship with these organizations, just like employment. There is a great level of togetherness. And indeed, the idea here is that you can't do life like you want to without these things that you're paying a monthly subscription for, in the same way that you can't do life without your salary. Okay, very well, Scott. What about the big companies? Well, I'm so glad you're asked. I mean, let's look at Apple. This is their earnings per share that's changed over the last 8 years. Originally, the iPhone, right, was giving you 95% of your share, earnings on your share. And then look at that product go down, and look at the services just slowly growing away there, right? Services, well, Apple now, services make up over 22% of their revenue. But look here at Adobe, for instance. Adobe is generating almost 90% of its revenue on a subscription service that's designed to improve people's lives month on month. They used to be a product company. Do you remember when you used to get Adobe products in boxes? Right? And the manuals would take up all the room on your shelf. Now look at this thing, right? Now we're talking about, well, this is service economy. And Disney just entering in here, and we're expecting far more. Well, what's the fundamental difference here? Well, the difference is huge. Multiple experiences leading to monthly billings, right? So a good was something you purchased once. Subscription is now something that you subscribe to. A service is a subscription you subscribe to, and it's sitting there. On top of that subscription, now I have multiple experiences, right? We're seeing the chain of economic progression. Those experiences, I pay an admission fee, right? Very much like a personal trainer at the gym. I'm paying for repeated training sessions. And over time, that produces a transformation in my life as a customer. So now there's a new metric, which is the king, lifetime value of customer. We're not concerned about a one-time purchase. We're concerned about the lifetime value of that customer, or indeed the lifetime value of an employee. We have gone to a far more transformational way at looking at the value that's delivered. Well, speaking of the big companies, let's look at the four, right? Scott Galloway, professor at NYU Stern, talks about the four as being the four horsemen of the apocalypse. And this is where they're going to be heading. These here are pretty much the largest industries in the world, and they're the ones that they will have to move into in order to sustain their revenues as these companies grow. And what have we got here? Well, we've got banking at 2.3 trillion, training education at 5 trillion. That they believe university fees set to grow to 10 trillion by 2030. Healthcare and health insurance, 5 trillion. Entertainment, 2 trillion. And guess what? Of course, these organizations, it's not like they're going to be going into them. No. They've already made their way. And look at the slew of ecosystem products already that are looking to transform us. And each of these are transformational offerings. These are not productized offerings. These are at least services. In some cases, they are actually endeavoring to offer an experience, and those chains of its services and experience are endeavoring to create a transformation in our life. And don't miss out there in the bottom right-hand corner, those bottles labeled with Amazon, right? This isn't just pills. We're talking about Amazon's vaccinated supply chain, right? We're talking about huge chains huge change, sorry, and essentially chain organizations here that are looking to really own fair portions of our life and the transformation and the fulfillment that we live by. Hence, Arne Sorensen in 2019 now said, we are in an absolute war for who owns the customer. Arne, you are right. And this was 2019, right? Loyalty has changed. I mean, flipping it, pick your platform. We're no longer in a world, right, where you want to get your card into the wallet and it's one of these loyalty cards. We're talking about the platform that you pick is the thing that you identify with, that people are having tattooed on themselves, right? We're talking about that level of devotion to one of these primary platforms in your life. Now, I wager it that if you've got a MacBook, you're likely not using an Android phone. And if you've got an Android phone, it's unlikely that you're going to have a MacBook. You're probably going to have a Chromebook, right? We're talking about or. This is not one, it's not and, right? And comes second. This is or. Are you Microsoft or Apple? Are you Google or Apple? Are you Facebook or Google, right? You one or the other. And then secondarily, maybe you get an and. Maybe you're somebody that has an Android phone and you have a MacBook or vice versa, right? But that is going to be rare. Think about Netflix, right? I've got Netflix. Do you get Netflix or do you get Amazon Prime? Now, some people will subscribe to both, but the gambit has changed now. It used to be, you'd say, right, well, I'm going to have a DVD from here and a DVD from there. I will buy a movie from here and I will buy a movie from there. And I will watch this on DVD and I'll see this at the cinema. Now it's, do I subscribe to Netflix or do I subscribe to Amazon Prime? Speaking of for, and speaking of the war to own the customers, well, let's not forget about the fourth industrial revolution. War is coming, right? Whether it's Skynet, Cyberdyne, or Weyland-Yutani, pick your dystopian Android maker of choice. And of course, then 3D printing is also on the horizon. Maybe that brings us a little bit more of a Star Trek future, but we are able to print organs now, right? So what happens when people no longer have to buy your products physically because they are subscribed to intangible, digitally delivered products, and anything that's physical, they're able to print at home? Who owns the customer then? Well, certainly it's the one that's got them subscribed to their ecosystem. That's who. Not just for the customer, this also affects the employee. Have you heard of universal basic income? I'm sure you have. Well, perhaps time to take it a little bit more seriously. This was considered to be some kind of wistful idea. It's actually 500 years old as an idea. It was considered to be wistful. Martin Luther King was a big proponent of it, actually. And it's the idea that basic income improves the market for labor by making it optional. What's that? Making work optional? Yeah. And people thought, oh, that's not going to happen. You can't pay people to do nothing. Well, all it took was an epidemic become a pandemic, and suddenly people are being paid to do nothing, right? We've got all these schemes, whether it's furlough and universal credit in the United Kingdom, the support to mitigate unemployment risks in the European Union with SURE. We've got a range of them. All these different countries now pouring billions and trillions into paying people to stay home and not work. In fact, in the UK, the furlough scheme dictates if you are furloughed, you can't work for your company. You have to sit home and you get paid 80% of your salary. And I'm not saying it's easy, but it's happened. Universal basic income in one form or another is here. So people don't have to work, and they're not buying physical products because, well, we'll see in a second. Let's just look at what employees want. Well, pre-COVID, 54% of employees said they'd leave their job for one that offers flexible work time. They'd take a pay cut to have more time, right? Again, this is transformational thinking. In COVID, 52% are now saying my work-life balance is better. I think it's something like 2/3 to 3/4 are saying it's better or the same. 74% are then saying productivity is the same or better. So what are they predicting post-COVID? Well, hell yeah. 72% of people, they're going to want to continue with a hybrid workplace. They don't want to go back. They get 5 to 10 hours a week of commuting back. Right? They get 5 to 10 hours per week, and they just don't have to commute. Actually, let's just take out the frustration of having to commute, which in itself is laborious. They're getting flexible hours so they can tend to their kids throughout the day. And, you know, we thought this was going to be 10 years off. But here in the UK, well, we've had a decade has happened in weeks. 10 years it took us right? We were up to, I think, around 6% of the workforce was working from home. In 8 weeks, we go from 6 to 60% of the workforce working from home. Prediction is that we will rest at the end of 2021 with 25% of the workforce from home. That's over a decade in a year that we've changed. Well, same thing. COVID has accelerated e-commerce, right? We saw it took us from 10 years to go from around 7% to around 16% of e-commerce penetration. Boom, in 8 weeks, coming up to 30%. That's a decade of growth in a matter of weeks. COVID has been the accelerator here. So what am I saying? I'm saying, and in this wall of text, and please feel free to take a screenshot right now, I'm saying that we've got services and platforms that are basically creating primary ecosystems that influence your life. We have subscription business models where we have regular payments that are basically taking away and they're putting you into an either or category, right? That's what they're doing. They are dividing and conquering. We have work as a platform, the idea that work is something that actually should enrich my life rather than take away from my life, and a range of benefits, the primary one of which is flexible work. Brand power is kicking in. We've hardly looked at brand power, but brand power kicks in with all of this. Essentially, who you're going to have tattooed to you, who's your ideology, hence privacy as a competitive advantage. With the transformation economy, which is engagement is required to achieve transformation, which is increasingly what people want to buy. And we've also got universal basic income and AI kicking at our heels. The idea being I will work for who I am engaged by. And if I'm not engaged, then I don't have to work. Boom. Well, we have to turn to engagement. Does engagement make a difference? Yes, it does. Unengaged organizations, let's say they make 1 times what they do. Well, if you fully optimize for engagement, you're looking at 6 times your performance and earning, right? That's what separates the big boys from the small boys here. That's what separates the brands that we love compared to the brands that are mediocre. The stock performance has been pretty darn great too, outperforming the S&P 500 from 110 to 150% over 6 years. Engagement is the last competitive advantage. Put it in other terms, engagement is the only thing that makes somebody turn up to you despite sleet or snow. They're what makes somebody forget about price because they want you. Their engagement is the thing that makes somebody forget about inconvenience because they want you. Engagement is the thing that makes them go, I'm going to get closer and closer to you because you are helping me become the person I want to be. And we're looking for employers and brands that will do that. It was 10 years away. It has been accelerated and it's now, well, the future has become the present. So what then shall we do? Well, the first is if the devil's going your way, ride his back, right? If this is the way everything's going, even if you don't like it, if the devil's going your way, ride his back. How can you integrate with the 4? So their innovations become your innovations. I don't just mean get an app, right? The days of just get an app and that's meant to be competitive are over. Right? I'm talking about if they're going your way, then follow it. Make it that when Apple makes a big song and dance about privacy, you're right there sucking it up because you're tied into Apple. Google are making a pivot towards education as is expected and as they are already doing with Google certification. Make it that you're there and you are aligning with their certification, right? Make employees' lives better. I think this one really, to me, is the biggest thing that we actually need to be thinking about doing. How can we create a platform that improves employees' lives so that it means something to be your employee? Right? How do we make it that actually to work for you means something? So you are not a commodity in employer. You are an employer that delivers life transformation. And this is more, right? People are working from home. So this is more than just endless free food. I mean, look, free food, when we could go into the office, that's nice. But transformation is really about true flexibility, psychological safety at work, leadership training, helping people grow, coaching people to become better. And I don't just mean leadership training and coaching for those where you see potential, because guess what? News alert, everybody has potential. This is about helping everybody become a better version of themselves. Their workplace is the place of life coaching and growth, right? That's what we're talking about. Finally, experiment with transformation subscriptions. Right. I'm not saying you have to do it. I'm saying experiment, small experiments. Don't pivot your whole business to this, but just begin to experiment. How can you offer monthly services that over a series of experiences, if somebody looks back over a year, they go, you know what? I've achieved transformation. Well, I'm Scott Gould. This has been the Engagement Apocalypse, and I invite you to check out my website and follow me if you have any questions. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of Ecom Talk, and I will see you when I see you. Peace.